Hi, welcome to the Composed Living Podcast with Elsa Elbert. That's me. Today, we are talking with Kristiana Tarnuzzer, who's one of my dear friends, and I think a very interesting person. And she just recently moved back to the East Coast after a few years of living in Los Angeles. She has the biggest heart out of anybody I know and has spent so much of her life trying to help other people and other causes. And I'm so excited to have her on the show today. Welcome.
Thank you.
It's so nice to see you. I haven't seen your face in way too long.
I know. The last time I saw you was when you were in New York.
Oh my
Real
God.
quickly.
Right. That was like August impromptu. It was like, what was it? It wasn't even like a lunch or a day. It was like a, hey, let's have a bite. And then I gotta go. There's a train.
It was me getting used to living the train life.
That
Yeah.
was yeah, which is so convenient, seemingly. I've never really traveled like outside of Manhattan, other than to like farther away places like, Boston or whatever. But
It's
uh,
convenient until you have to sprint out
yeah,
of
run
a
out in the middle of a meal, like it's the last train.
I think that's what I did say, right?
Oh man, how is life in Connecticut?
It's so good. Yeah, it's good. Now that we're finally settled. Took a while to get settled, but I'm so happy to be back.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that. I can't wait to come see you. And I think we're going to plan a trip in October, maybe to New York. And then if the timing works out right, we can come. I want to see your new house, all the things.
We are ready for you, finally.
Oh, so good. So one of the things we ask everybody on the show is to share a little bit about what composed living means to them, which, from my perspective, it's when I started this business, it was really beyond the intention of only helping people in their homes and with this idea of creating a whole and balanced life. For me, organizing my life is sort of the key to creating that composed living. But I think it's a little bit different for everybody, what it takes to really create their ideal life. I would love to hear your thoughts.
Mm. Mm. Well, I feel like what I think is composed living now is different than what I used to think composed living was. I used to probably think that, well, I know that I used to think composed living was, having everything in order, having a very, regimented schedule and being in control of my, house and my kids' schedule and my work schedule and everything just kind of lined up and plan B's, plan C's, all the things. So different now. And a lot of that has to do with, just, some recent years, moving across the country and
Twice.
um, twice, yeah, during a pandemic with two kids, not a big deal. But yeah, I think, life has changed so much for me in the past, 5 years. And I would say now composed living to me means just living for me. And I know that sounds like really selfish, and it's not intended to come off selfishly, but just I have found that when I can authentically align my life with myself and what's important to me and my values, and everything else just kind of flows. And that's really different than in the past when I used to a lot of times, live according to other people's expectations and standards and needs. Of course, I still, I have two kids and I have a husband and I have friends and I have a community and things like that. But at the core, if I'm being true to myself and, saying yes to things that I really want to say yes to and being, genuine in my no's and my no thank yous, then that for me has served me very well in living a very composed life.
I love that for you. I mean, for everyone, but particularly for you. I think oftentimes probably people think, especially when it comes to home organizing, right? You see photos of these after spaces and they're like so pristine and perfect. And it looks like a department store and not a home that like living human beings are participating in. Uh, and it's not the intention, right? Like, and that's why I always try to clarify, like for me, it's about creating a life that you want to be living. And
Mhm.
I don't think it's selfish for you to say that you want to live, according to your own values and your own desires because it's your life,
Yeah.
everybody
It
else.
also helps me when other people, kind of live like that.
Yeah.
I used to think probably when people were, saying no to things or things like that, people would get a little insulted or feel, well, they're just being selfish or they only care about themselves. And most of the time, at least that I found and kind of looking back, I just appreciate that clarity. I think a lot of it is clarity and just having going through life with that clarity and being, okay with it. You taught me something great, I remember. It's so small, but it always stuck with me when you were helping me move from from LA back here. Oh God, that was so crazy. And I remember you holding up pieces in my closet and you were like, and I was like, I don't know, like, do I keep that? Do I not? And you were like, does it bring you joy? And I was like, oh my God, I would never even think to like look at, and be like, does this bring me joy? But
That top
you're
is bringing me joy. It's very cute.
so glad. But and I'm like, that's such a great way to look at it, like, and I really used that perspective in terms of even just like in my new house and kind of furnishing a new house and decorating a new house and selecting items and what am I going to take, what am I going to leave behind, is just really feeling that joy. Do these items bring me joy?
It is amazing to me how complicated that is to make happen, at least from my personal experience. Uh, and I feel like that, like this idea of choosing joy or choosing things that bring us that feeling, is so combined also with the idea of like living your life only for yourself. And I didn't realize until you and I went through home renovations at the same time. So we're in the the same boat, choosing things for a new space. And I realized how often I don't do what I want to do
Mm,
because I think that I'm doing someone else a favor by not allowing myself this item. And in reality, nobody asked me to. Nobody
mhm.
asked me to compromise. Nobody even is aware that I'm sacrificing this thing on behalf of their imaginary
Yeah,
request of
yeah,
me. And to be like super specific, like I've spent my entire life not buying the things that I want for my home because I think, oh, Chad will be upset if I spend $200 on this like wooden object, that like serves no purpose other than to look super cute on my bookshelf. And in reality, like, first of all, Chad probably wouldn't even know. Second, he definitely wouldn't care. Like, we have so much trust between us that like he knows that I'm not going to make financial decisions that will impact us negatively. And he trusts that. So, he knows that I see the whole picture and like he would never even ask me, let alone begrudge me this item that I might want,
yeah.
and that was like across the board.
Yeah.
And
You
not
said
from
you said this word sacrifice, and it's something that like it's a word. It was just interesting to me. Sorry to interrupt you, but I heard you say it and I was like, whoa, like that has been such a key word for me in these past couple of years too. And like a word that I never actually really said out loud too much, but I know that I certainly felt internally a lot of times in kind of making those decisions of like, what was I going to buy? Who was I going to say yes to? What kind of things was I going to commit to? And it was just like this internal feeling that I finally was able to put that word sacrifice to. And I'm like, ooh, like that is a word and a feeling and a belief system that I just like don't want anything to do with anymore. And just something that I've
not
really,
in a negative way. Yeah, not when I feel like I don't want to do it.
right.
Happy to sacrifice something on behalf of someone else
Mhm.
because it's what I truly want and I've thought about it and there has been a request made of me, you know?
Yeah,
Or
yeah,
maybe it doesn't even need it, but like it shouldn't be because I've made it up in my
yeah,
own
yeah,
head.
yes,
And
yeah,
then I'm limiting my own ability to experience joy on behalf of like nothing, some imaginary request that never appeared.
yeah.
That's why, so, and that's a great segue, I guess, into my next question for you, which is if there is like one word or feeling that you're very focused on at this moment in your life. And for me, that word is joy because I'm realizing how deeply ingrained I have gone out of my way to not experience joy, like not be aware of it while it's happening around me for most of my life. And now I'm like you with the sacrifice. I'm like, no, no more. I only want joyful things.
Yeah. I
Or at
remember
least like
going through,
clarity of mind and like the calmness, the stillness to be able to experience it while it's happening because there's so many joyful moments in every day. And I have just spent too many years being like, well, I can't think about that right now because I'm already thinking about like what I'm going to do professionally 2 years from now and like kids' lunches 3 weeks from now. Like it's
yeah.
my mind has not been in this moment to experience like the beauty of this life that I've worked so hard to create. And now I'm just fed up. I'm like, I need all joy all the time.
And the more that you feel it, the more that you'll continue to feel it. And I remember going for a walk with you one day, and I think it was like when we were in the midst of the pandemic and we were like probably standing on like opposite sides of the sidewalk or something when we were going for a walk, and you were like, I want to feel joy, and I don't know that I ever actually did like feel pure joy. And I remember being like, yeah, I don't know that I have either. I think there's times I've been like really happy, but I don't know that I felt like true joy. And that was at the beginning of kind of the past few years of where I've just felt a lot of different things, but can truly honestly now say like I know that real true genuine feeling of joy, and to make that conscious effort to just stop and recognize it and to feel it is like that's something that I try to do every single day. Is like, if I'm walking and my kid just like grabs my hand like while we're walking, like that is like that moment, that you just are like, soak that in. But there's another word that comes to mind for me, and I do love the word joy, but I would say mine is probably trust. And I don't know that I always trusted myself, and trusted in, like a source, a higher power. And that is something that that I've certainly developed, through, some challenges and some like, different ways, but to be able to trust myself and to trust that, I'm taken care of. And when I come into a place of, if there's a challenge or something and I don't know how to proceed, or if I don't know, what the answer is, or my son or my daughter having a struggle or something, I just trust and I kind of ask. I've learned to just ask, myself and a higher power, like give me, help me, guide me into answering the right way, or giving the right words, or saying what needs to be said, or doing what needs to be said right now. And so, yeah, I think it's again that trust of saying, authentically what's me versus what I think the other person wants to hear.
I think that's so beautiful. And it really makes sense in relation to what you were talking about earlier, just wanting to be done with sacrifice and start living your life for yourself. I think is so cool. Trust is such a good word, and not one that I hear very often. But it's interesting that you say too, like it's not just trusting in a higher power, but also trusting in yourself. And I think from what I've watched you go through over the last several years, you really have relied a lot on trusting your own intuition and advocating for your own health and well-being and moving your life in a direction that's going to make you happier.
Mhm.
I hope you don't mind if I share what you said to me when I asked you to be on this podcast.
I, I'm not sure if I remember, but sure.
It was the best response because you're like, I would love to do this. I would love to support you, which is like very true to your nature. You're such a supportive, caring friend. And then you're like, but I'm not interested. I'm not doing anything right now. There's nothing I can share that people would want to hear. Like, I'm not, striving for like a career achievement or like a big success right now. And then you said, I'm just so content with my life where it is right now and my house and my kids and my marriage that I don't have anything to talk about. And I was like, excuse me, that's the most interesting story in the world to go from so many challenges or struggles, going through a pandemic, all of these things. You have two young kids. You and Mark have been married for more than 10 years now.
Yeah.
And then health issues that kind of sprung up that were frustrating for you, I'm sure. And to come to a place where you can say, I'm just so at peace with my life the way it is right now, I think is what everybody is striving for. You're like,
So
no.
funny. I really did. I was like, oh, I don't know what I have to offer, but yes, it's true. It's true.
What do
It's
you
true.
think has been the biggest game changer for you in the last few years? Like to achieve this feeling of, contentedness in a life is a very big thing to accomplish. I think most of us are future tripping and looking for what we can do or acquire or create or whatever next. And so the word, at least to me, evokes this idea of like, I'm so happy with what it is that I have right now at this moment in time, which feels very self-aware. It feels very trusting. It feels very open and grateful.
Yeah, those are all words that I definitely feel. And I mean, absolutely, hands down, I know that it was my move to LA that kind of just triggered the whole kind of journey for me. We moved out to LA right before I turned 40. I was, born and raised on the East Coast here, and my whole family's here, all of my, friends growing up. And then we moved out there for Mark's work. And, I've never been in a place where I have felt like so uncomfortable. I felt like, I was like, I don't know, I lost myself entirely. I had to stop working to move out there, and and I felt like I had to, and I should do things, and I should. And I work with this intuitive therapist. She's incredible, and she's not like a traditional therapist, and she's exactly who I was to be, who I was to meet, again, serendipitously. And she always says to me, like, well, who are you shoulding on? Like, why do you use that word, like should? So I always go back to that. Like, whenever I say the word should, I'm like, no, stop. But I know when I moved out there, I think so much kind of overcame me, like being lost in this new place, and not having, my purpose, which at the time was like my career, right? Like,
Yeah.
silly. And like trying to start something new and trying to meet people and trying to, fit in, and taking care of my two kids who I loved dearly, but my God, I just like sucked so bad at being
The cutest.
oh, thank you. But I just like really was not good at like being a stay-at-home mom at the time, and I like was really bad at, like, almost burned down our house, and like, trying to cook lunch and get them to a play date, and
They're not on purpose.
no, definitely not on purpose. Like, I remember it was bad. My husband's like, you're a really good mom, but like you're just a really bad stay-at-home. And I was like, I didn't sign up for this. So I was trying to find work, and I had some things going on with my family at the time, and my dog that I rescued back in like 2006, she, passed away, and I wasn't back on the East Coast to like be with her. It was just like so many things started happening. And then I found myself, I got like really sick. I know you remember that. And it was right before the pandemic, like literally like the month before the pandemic hit. And I got really ill. Like I couldn't do anything. I could barely walk around my block. And like, this was me who like, I was boxing every day. I was surfing. I was playing tennis. Like, never had any, help. Like, would just look, the person would go to the doctor and be like, take my blood pressure. I know I'm fine. And I think, there was so, I know that like it was the worst time for me, but I know that that's what had to happen, and it kind of pushed me into this place of trusting and support, because with that came like a deep depression, a lot of anxiety, health anxiety, like questioning like why is my body failing me, going to doctors and just being in this spiral of getting tests and never getting the answers that I needed. Never, it was like I was like chasing a diagnosis, like please just tell me like something's wrong, and nobody could describe anything. But despite there being these very strange symptoms, sleepless nights, consecutively for months, and I just kind of remember one night specifically just falling into this place of just like surrender and just being like, I have no idea like what's going on, fearful of, truthfully my life, because I knew inside like something was wrong. And yeah, and I just kind of, I could never meditate, by the way. Like I hated when people would be like, just meditate. And I'm like, I don't know how to, like, I can't, it's so hard, and I've been to like all these places and yoga places, and like been to India.
Not for everyone.
It's really
Not
not.
meditation in the way we think about meditation traditionally. I think you find meditation through like surfing and being in the ocean and being active.
I found those moments, right? And I remember this one night, it was a typical night for me at like 3:30 in the morning, where I couldn't sleep again. And just walked outside to my like back patio in LA in the middle of the night. Like who knows, what was in my backyard, but I just sat and I just kind of sat. And that was the first time I fell into a meditation for like an hour. And I didn't stop after that. Like every day after that, that's what I did. And it was just crazy, because I, for the first time, experienced what that was like, and really truly from that moment forward just developed a connection.
That's
And
amazing.
yeah, just began to
Still doing meditation now in that way?
yes, not to that extent. I find other way. I mean, that was like a very deep period for me where it was the only thing that I found comfort in. And and I would read a lot and just read a lot. But now I meditate, and it's like I try to give myself about 15 minutes every morning, but I'm able to see, I could never get there. Do you know what I'm saying? Like I could never get to that place. Like it was so much to clear out that like just to try to get there like was never going to work for me. It was never going to happen. And I spent so much time, because what else did we have during the pandemic but time? And that's why actually I'm grateful to the pandemic, to clear a lot of that shit out. And now when I find myself going into a meditation, I just, I can do it a lot quicker, a lot faster. And I just, a lot of times just take a couple of minutes to just be, just to be.
That's so awesome that you found a new tool for helping your body reset.
Yeah,
Just like
kind
I
of,
need
I
more,
mean,
like it's not, sometimes I try to meditate and it's not the vibe. So then I need something else in my toolkit that's going to be able to help me I'm a very, anxiety is not the word. They need to like invent a new kind of anxiety that's for me.
I know everybody's like, well, I was like, well, I don't want to wish that upon you. Like, that's not, I don't want to be like, well, here's what you have to do. You have to go through really, really bad, like, because it's not what you have to do. It's just how mine happened to come. It was like this moment of just, whether it was desperation, I like to say it was like surrendering, where I'm like, I can't, like, I've tried so hard, like when I say back to my composed living previous lifestyle, to get everything organized. I went to all the doctors, I did all the tests, I did this, I tried to have everything like this, and my body was like, nope, like that's not how it is to be.
So you did everything that you were supposed to do, everything you should have done, as you would say. And then really it came down to trusting in yourself and your own body and your own intuition and the universe to take care of you.
And it's crazy because once I did that, all of a sudden I was meeting people or being introduced to somebody that, had a wonderful, suggestion for me, whether it was like craniosacral therapy or rolfing or psychoneuroenergetics, which I wound up doing a training on, and I truly believe in that tool, and or a new book to read, just it was very eye-opening. And the more that those things would happen, the more that the trust gets built.
It's amazing. When you're on the right path, the universe just keeps giving you
I know.
more.
I know.
We're stubborn creatures. We love to go right to where the resistance is.
I truly think that's why, for me personally, it was a health thing, because it really was out of my control. Like I was so stubborn that if it was something to do with like my kids or work or community or my husband or something, like I would do what I needed to do to figure it out, right?
Mhm.
And so I truly believe that like it became my health because I just, like, there was nothing else I could do to control it. So I know that's why it was handed to me as it was.
So frustrating to have a challenge in front of you that you have no way to like control or organize your way out of,
But it gives a lot of perspective.
So much of life.
Yeah, and that's where I would say that, like, that it just like it, that's why I have the perspective that I do now, that I'm just like, really, what does something actually really matter? Did you ever read The Untethered Soul? Great book.
Yes.
I highly recommend.
Love that book.
It's just
I
like
read that book in the pool one summer, and so it's like, when you have the pages get wet from your face, it's like so fat now.
they're like stuck together. Yeah.
But it makes me so happy. That was my first the summer of the beginning of COVID, when I couldn't work and I was at home all the time. I was like, well, I'm gonna take this time to just read and be outside and enjoy. And so it makes me kind of happy to see it now, when I like have such a clear memory of being like wet fingers and wet pages and the sunshine. But it is a great book.
Yeah.
Another, I mean, the Four Agreements is also one along similar lines that had such a profound impact on just changing the way I think. And it's never, I feel like it's not like my mind is permanently changed and now I'm like, I'm so wise and clear and I'll never go back to my wild ways. But it's at least helpful to have these little tidbits that like pop out in moments where you're like, oh wait, I remember I'm supposed to not be stressed out about this thing. And I think the Four Agreements gave me the understanding that how other people respond to us is not our responsibility. And it made me think of it when you said, like when people are like, no, I'm sorry, I'm not going to come to that thing. And other people are like, oh, it's because they're selfish and it's this, or you like internalize it. And it has made it easier for me to accept when somebody else is going through something as like, that's not my thing. This is simply their reaction to their circumstances. And I can trust that I've behaved in a way that is you know, hopefully kind and supportive, and I didn't do something to offend.
Mm.
Uh, but also it helps me to maintain my own boundaries too, and be like, no, I'm not going to come to your birthday party, and I don't need to even offer you an explanation or an apology. Like, I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm just simply not going to be there. And like, that has nothing to do with you. And it has to do with like where I am in my life. And that's okay.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, this concept of like not taking offense, or even internalizing that you have falsely offended is a game changer. And then the other thing that came up for me as you were chatting is this idea of trust. Somebody told me one time that worrying is basically saying that you have no faith.
Mm.
And I spend so much of my time worrying. That's what I meant before when I was like, I don't feel like I'm an anxious person, but I definitely am like, I'm so focused on the future and what's going to happen and trying to find little ways that I can like, control the future, I guess. I don't know what my desire is there, but it's like I guess I'm trying to avoid obstacles in the future by preparing for things that may or may not even happen. And like the absurdity of that is not lost on me. But that's such a nice reminder when it does pop into my head that's like, hey, if you're worrying this much about something, you are telling the universe or God or whatever you believe in, that you don't have any faith that they're going to take care of you.
Right.
And when that finally sinks in with me, I'm like, oh, yeah, I can trust. I can trust. Like, the universe has not let me down so far. Every time I've trusted and been clear about what it is that I want or what's, my heart's desires,
Mm.
uh, that has come to me in some shape or form, whether it's exactly the way I envisioned it or in a cooler, better for me way. And
It's
sometimes I just,
so funny. There's been these times where like something would happen and and it's almost like there's like somebody that I'm talking to. I was like, but they're not,
yeah,
it, they, them, whatever you want to, God, source, higher, whatever, blah, blah. You don't know what's it called, but like that, I almost like want to be like, oh my God, that's exactly what you were trying to say to me, like want to be like that's why that happened. I get it now. Like 3 months ago, I was freaking out about that, but I get it now. And it's just like these things would happen that you have this fear over, you worry. And then just when you trust and then you see how something turns out, it's a lot of times it's very subtle, but I do specifically remember like 3 times and in the past couple of years where I had these like, oh my God, like that is so like almost like you're talking to me,
yeah,
and
I
it's
love
really.
those moments.
Mhm.
I had worked with somebody to like find your like spirit guide.
Yeah.
I don't get a chance to talk about like all the wild things that I'm very curious about learning more about. Uh, but I feel like people who know me best know that I'm so open to anything and I'm a very curious person. So if anybody ever presents me with like here's a hypnotist, here's a tarot, I'm like, I will do all of it all day, any day. Like, I'm just so fascinated by people and their different experiences on this planet. And I
I
found it to be incredibly helpful. And I shared my experience with this like spirit guide, whatever you want to call them, like a guardian angel with Chad. And he was like, you've lost it. Like, you're off the deep end now, lady. And I was like, no, his name is Jonathan. And we had a full on conversation. I'm very clear on the fact that he is my guardian angel. And I talked to you when you helped me with composed living and like aligning values, my values as a person, and bringing them into my business. And I loved our conversations because they were so intense and so deep and personal and vulnerable. And I shared with you too about having like a relationship with like the archangel Michael and how that manifested in my life. And it's like you can believe whatever you want to believe, but the truth of the whole story is that I had like 3 life-threatening moments And in each one of those moments, the person who saved me happened to be named Michael, which is also and it's like, I'm not a Catholic person. I truly could not name another angel. But these are the things. And like, also the way I happened to learn about the existence of these things was so perfectly timed. I was like, it's got to be more than a coincidence. And I was like, who cares? Even if it is a coincidence and I choose to believe that it's something more magical, that's my business.
Yes. And I think that's so important too, is like, if something's working for you, and that's like, again, who you just, again, it's just come to this place of like, I don't care. Same thing. I mean, Mark is an incredibly practical human being, my husband. And I think he's walked in as I've been like face down trying to connect with my spirit guide. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, connecting with my spirit guide. You just give me 2 minutes, like, get it.
We're almost done.
And he's just accepted it, and was like, that's her thing. And I think and fast forward to today where he's actually like, hey, what would you do in this situation? And I'm like, well, like that's pretty big, because I'm positive you would not have asked me.
He's the end result, right? And you can't argue with the fact like how much your circumstances and your mood and your overall well-being have changed over the last couple of years. He's probably seeing like, who cares? Even if what she's doing is real or not real, or I believe it, like something in you has actually changed and it's working. And I love that now he's coming to you for guidance. That's so cute.
I think it also just goes back to that word clarity, just having real clarity around like what feels right for me. And he can see that, it's like, it's not ever, just being confrontational to be confrontational. It's, I think now when I don't agree with something, it doesn't even come out confrontational. It comes out very genuine. And they're like, wow, she really doesn't love that, and it's like people want to hear about it when you come from that genuine place. There is that curiosity that comes out a little bit more versus becoming defensive, where they're like, yes, it is, no, it's not, yes, it is, no. It's like when you come from a place of real genuineness, like people will be more open, and I have found that as well. And honestly, I think that's really what the whole world could be in a better place of now, is just being more curious, more open, more dialogue, more conversation versus the like stance,
Yeah. Dialogue is such a good way of describing that, because I don't feel like we're having a lot of dialogues in our country right now. I think it's a lot more people are speaking. They're just speaking for the sake of hearing their own voices or having their own opinions voiced, but there's not someone listening on the other end, and there's no dialogue happening between the two. And that is, it doesn't function in any place. I go back to thinking like we did a whole class on this in my master's, where we're talking about the importance of dialogue. Like you cannot be a teacher if you don't have a student. You cannot be a student if you don't have a teacher. And the two things, like both things are needed in order for change to happen. And sadly, what's happening right now is we have a whole bunch of teachers and 0 students. It's a real bummer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess like when people say like, what can you do to contribute back to the community? I'm like, it's really being conscious of how I am presenting and being in the world, right? And it's that, it's encouraging the dialogue, it's being open, even to people that have very different viewpoints than I do. And again, just coming from that place of kindness, compassion, self-awareness, to guide those conversations, probably a very different approach than I might have had 10 years ago.
Yeah. I think this has been your superpower. like for as long as I've known you, you have such an incredible ability to bring together a community of people from sort of all walks of life and present them with information on something that's like extremely valuable about making our world a better place. That's how we met. You and I
Mm.
met at the Open Hearts Foundation, hosted at the beautiful home of Jane Seymour in Malibu. And you are my absolute favorite kind of human being to meet because I'm so shy in social setting. Like if I don't know someone there, I'm just full of nerves. And you are the opposite. You're the kind of person who just walks up and is like, "Hi, I'm Kristiana. Do you want to be friends?" I'm like, "Yes, thank God."
I don't do that to just anybody, no.
Uh, and that's how we met. And then over the years, I mean, you have come up with so many beautiful ideas to bring people together and figure out ways that we can make the world a little bit of a better place. And you've coordinated panels and group discussions and helped so many people get clear on their values so that they can contribute more to the world. And you do it with such ease and like it just comes from you so naturally. That's your superpower.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate that, and I do, I love to bring people together. I actually am, nobody really actually believes this about me, but I am very much an introvert. I just happen to, I'm okay of, going up to people and saying hello, but, and introducing it, because I love meeting people. I love, hearing about people and then because of that, making connections and I love what kind of comes of that. But I really at the end of the day, I'm very much an introvert, and I think people would be surprised to hear that. But you know, I'm good in like kind of smaller groups now. I can see, when I have like five like really good energy people around, I could, talk and talk and talk. And then, but sometimes when we go to like parties and things, like Mark can stay and he wants to go to the next place and that like fuels him. And I'm like,
Mark
eh,
and Chad are like the same person.
I need to go home and like light my candle, read my book, get in
Yeah.
bed. Like
Well, I think so many people equate introversion with shyness or like
yeah.
not wanting to like wanting
I
to
used
spend
to
more time
think
in
like
solitude. And I mean, I live in a completely extroverted role, right? Like I'm hosting a podcast. I let my younger brother just brought this up to me the other day because he's like, I never would have envisioned this life for you where like everything you do is so out there and public and like from public speaking and like hosting large events and I love all of that. I'm not shy in that regard, but for me the introversion is like once I have been out in the world and I've put forth it's an energy drain for me. A happy one and I love doing it, but like I don't recharge that way. I recharge by coming home and spending time in solitude to the point where if I know that even my family is home, I'll stay in my car in the driveway. Like I need solitude in order to recharge my batteries. So it's not that like I can't be around people or I'm too shy to do these things. It's I enjoy them very much and it fills me with so much energy and I love the community aspect. Uh, but I absolutely need to come home and be in full solitude to be able to recover. And that doesn't even matter like high vibe, low vibe. It's just all people. If I interact for too long, like you do not want to see me.
And I mean, honestly, that's another thing. Like I had the same impression of what extrovert, introvert meant. I mean, people kind of said to me, like, you're the most extroverted introvert I know then. Because and I'm like, I guess so.
That's so true. But really, like my mom and probably Chad and Mark, right? They get their energy from being out in community. And, that's why they probably both have the jobs that they have. Like my mom, literally every single day, she's like to the coffee shop. She has to be around people. There's like, she does not want to have a morning coffee alone and meditate. She wants to be like, where can I find the most number of people? And she'll talk to every stranger. Like that's how she, gets excited about things.
Yeah, yeah.
Just so cool. I mean, I love that. I love that there's both kinds of people in the world.
Mhm.
All of us little homebodies.
Yeah. Well, I think we're also, what do they say? Like, sensitive, highly sensitive
Mhm.
as
Had
well.
a great conversation with a woman who is a psychic medium. I think the episode's probably out already. Emma is her name. And we were talking about like creating an energy shield, specifically for highly sensitive people, because that can be no fun at all.
Yes.
You're around someone who just like does not vibe with your energy, and you're like, "Ugh,
I saw,
it's
I saw
working for
something
me."
on, I saw something on Instagram and they were like, somebody needs to invent like the little room so that like the highly sensitive, introverted people can, at a party, can just go in, step in, kind of like recharge for 5 minutes and like,
It's like dim lighting, a soft candle, maybe a
yeah.
cozy
You're
blanket.
not in the bathroom for
No
10
one's allowed to
minutes
talk.
here, but like, yeah, just like an acceptable space. Yeah.
I mean, I think truly this is why I love like a spa day, right? It's like no one's talking to you. There's no cell phone. And obviously that's like such a luxury and one I wish I had much more often. But that is like I come out of that just like I'm like, hi, I'm so just like fully recharged, I'm like a whole day where I didn't have a conversation, I didn't do anything, I wasn't productive. I'm just like wrapped in a soft robe. What a dream.
I love it. Probably why I love the spa too.
That
Yeah.
could be like included in all health insurance plans, especially for people who are prone to whatever, being highly sensitive.
Yep.
You hear that, Blue Cross of California? I'm standing holidays to be added to my plan. I'm just happy they cover acupuncture.
I know, finally. Mhm.
I have to call out the painting that's behind your head because it's hilarious to me. I made this with my dear friend Christina, who is the actual artist. She was teaching me how to do resin art. Um,
It is
and
now my
now it's in your office.
piece in my office. I love it. And everybody comments on it and I'm so I just see it's one of the pieces that brought me such joy that it came with across the country and it is now in my I love my office. I look around and it's got all little pieces from like places that I've traveled and yeah, I love it. And this is what everybody sees when I take Zoom calls.
Oh, that makes me so happy. It was fun to have the opportunity to create something and learn something new. And it was so wonderful to have the piece hanging in our house for years. And now it makes me even happier that it's hanging in yours and you continue the enjoyment.
I have to take a pan for you at some point.
Yeah, send me a photo. I'm so
Oh,
curious. But also, I'm just going to come stay in your house.
and
That's the easiest way to just see it all. Oh man, thank you so much for being a guest on this podcast. It's so nice to see your face and to catch up with you. And I'm so happy that you were willing to share a little bit of your story with our listeners and with me.
oh my gosh, thank you for having me. I love you. I love seeing your face. I miss you. I feel like I just got to catch up with you a little bit, so makes me
I
happy.
know it's so nice. All right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.